As a sort of liberal thinking, environmental thinking person, I am concerned about the future of humans. If you think about resources, one we really can't live without is water. It's probably the resource we think the least about.
Although it covers so much of the Earth, only 3% of the world's water is fresh water. 2% of that is trapped in glaciers, leaving only 1% for the world to drink. Yet we take it for granted.
I drink a lot of water throughout the day. Probably, doctors recommend, I think it's 8 full glasses of water a day. And I drink more than that.
And I drink a ton of water, and I think that drinking water is something that you get used to.
But our water debts go far beyond just direct consumption. Indirectly, our virtual water consumption carries the most weight.
Virtual water is sometimes called indirect water, and surprisingly, it's most of the water we use. The majority of it comes from the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the manufacturing processes. When you think about virtual water and food production, if, say, you're thinking about that pound of beef you're going to eat, you might think, oh, there's that cow, and that cow drinks so much water, or you need so much water to wash the cow. And that's certainly one use, but you might not think that's the water that was also used to raise the wheat, or the corn, or the soybeans, or the grass, or the hay, all of this food that cow is eating. I don't think people appreciate how precious the food is. And so you have to really extend far to get the idea that all of this water, not just drinking water and washing water, goes into the water that this cow consumes.
Even on the dead of winter, frozen cold day, they'll drink 150 to 200 gallons of water. I would say that it probably takes more water to raise the steers versus some tomatoes.
The cattle use a lot of water when they live, and raising them to the point where we have 100 million for 400 million people in the United States, it's a lot of water that gets used up. But knowing that, I try to do my job with lowering my carbon footprint, but eating is important to me. I like eating meat. It's a lot easier to get a pound of beef than to find Fiji apples all times through the year. So I guess the fact that it's more available to me is really nice, and it makes it a staple of my diet. And although it's more expensive than most foods, meat provides a satisfaction that most other foods don't for me.
If meat is hard to sustain, could tofu be a solution?
I've not considered whether a vegan diet consumes less water, but I assume that it does.
To use water, we have to soak the beans. We then have to mix them with water in order to cook them. And then we use the most amount of water to cool the tofu once it's been actually made. Any vegetable-based diet is going to be more sustainable than an animal-based diet, primarily because the soybeans are annually renewable, whereas with the meat-based diet, you're growing the same soybeans in many cases to feed to the animals, and then the animals are then slaughtered to feed people. There's a large amount of inefficiency there.
But at the same time, with somebody who has goals in wrestling, I know that soy protein has been tied to increased estrogen and less returns on weightlifting and in athletic competition in general for males. So that also affects my decision.
I think people need to be aware that almost no matter what they do, they're having an impact on the environment. Ideally, a vegan diet would use even less water. I think the numbers are about 300 gallons less a day of water than omnivore kind of diets. So they consume about a third less. You can think that sort of a normal, regular American diet, you probably, in terms of the food you eat, consume about 1,200 gallons of water. So you can save a third of that.
Everything has an impact, and I think that's important. But I think that's why you just have to do the little things. I'm not saying that everyone should be vegan, because I think that it's unrealistic and honestly rude of me and not my place to say that. But I think that a lot of people do no meat Mondays, and things like that, like just trying to like a meal that meat and like see how it is. Like maybe like you really like lentils, or like you like find like something that you really like, or you like the way you feel. And like, so there, you know, there are definitely a lot of different ways. And I think that as a culture, we've been raised to just see like protein, and like that's like where we're supposed to get it from, like burgers and chicken and whatever. But there are definitely, you can widen your view.
Once I'm done wrestling, I won't need protein as badly. I'll still be working out, but I won't be working out as frequently or as intensely. So at that point, I would be perfectly open to eating soy protein or anything else for that matter.